going on?
I have no idea.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 sequels that were made way too late.
Yeah, man. I'm sort of natural to me, you know.
Now forget everything I just said and dance.
You look the same.
Oh, lots happened, Sam. More than you can imagine.
For this list, we'll be looking at movie sequels that came out years after their immediate predecessors, much to their detriment. We'll be ranking our entries based on how badly the gap in time hurt their respective films, whether the story was negatively affected, or audience interest had dried up. And we won't be excluding other kinds of follow-ups like prequels, so as long as the films are in direct relation. What sequel do you think missed its window of opportunity? Let us know in the comments. Number 20, Sin City, A Dame to Kill For.
Looks like trouble.
Looks like Christmas.
The first Sin City was quite the success for co-director and comics creator Frank Miller back in 2005, roughly quadrupling its budget with a $160 million gross. Though there were many other yarns to adapt for possible sequels, Miller opted to apply the film's visual style to two other projects, 300 and The Spirit, both of which were released in subsequent years. It wasn't until 2014 that we saw Miller adapt his second yarn in the series, A Dame to Kill For, and the results were far less encouraging. Grossing just $39 million off a $65 million budget, the film was a complete bomb, proving the audience simply wasn't there anymore. And for good reason, as the storylines and restructured cast were far less memorable.
Here we are, pal. All of a sudden, this doesn't look like the brightest idea you ever had.
Number 19, The X-Files, I Want to Believe. Technically, this second X-Files movie came to theaters 6 years after Mulder and Scully's last appearance, when the series wrapped for the first time in 2002.
I had a visitor today, Mulder. The FBI wants your help finding a missing agent.
Well, I hope you told them to go screw themselves.
Even so, 6 years is a long time for even stalwart fans to move on to other mystery television like Lost. Of course, a second film was planned to follow up the conclusion of the series, but multiple delays led to it being released in the summer of 2008, which was already historically crowded. It grossed roughly a third of what the first film made in 1998, proving that they merely wanted to believe the audience would still be there. Fortunately, it wasn't the last we'd see of Mulder and Scully, as the series returned briefly in 2016.
You look exhausted, Mulder.
It was a long day at the office.
Number 18, Caddyshack II. Woof. Where to even start with this one?
It's typical. In my line of work, you learn it's the details that kill you.
Just make sure that next time there aren't any screw-ups.
As the late, great Harold Ramis reflected, he didn't even want to write a sequel, but was pressured into doing so by Warner Brothers and the first film's ostensible lead, Rodney Dangerfield. Ironically, Dangerfield was first to back out, prompting Ramis to do the same with only a single draft written. Nevertheless, that didn't stop the studio from using that script to fart out Caddyshack 2 in 1988. Now with Chevy Chase as the only returning star, audiences could smell a dud, as the film bombed and was torn apart by critics for good measure. Simply put, it had a rough go at replicating the comedic tempo of the first, proving that you cannot force fine art.
Whoever sinks their putt wins the match. Frankly, I'm not worried.
Number 17, The Odd Couple 2. We love to recognize a notable anniversary as much as the next person, but sometimes it can be used as an excuse to go forward with a bad idea.
Felix, I haven't seen you in how long? 8, 9 years?
17. 17 years, Oscar. You couldn't even remember that we haven't seen each other for 17 years?
Tell you the truth, I didn't dwell on it.
Such was the case with The Odd Couple 2, which came out a whopping 30 years after the classic original. Sure, Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau had recently had success with the Grumpy Old Men movies, but that did not continue here. Making a paltry $18 million in 1998, the film was hardly the critical success that the original was. Quite plainly, the brand of comedy wasn't as side-splitting as it was in 1968, and an already 10-year-old Neil Simon script didn't help matters. Perhaps Odd Couples work better as a concept than a franchise.
Nothing has changed, Felix. I'm still a pig, you're still a human vacuum cleaner.
I know, so if you don't think it'll work, you just say no.
No.
Number 16, Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles.
Okay, everyone, we're on a tight schedule here. We better keep moving.
The first Crocodile Dundee was one of the biggest comedy hits of the 1980s, and the second did fairly well too in terms of dollars and cents. However, the extremely poor reception to the latter made sure that the titular Aussie took off all of the 90s from Cineplexes. Then at the turn of the millennium, Paul Hogan returned the character to American soil, but this time to the West Coast by way of Los Angeles.
Would have been cheaper here and more realistic.
Apparently, distance does not make the heart grow fonder, as the apparent easygoing nature of the series had all but evaporated over the years.
Comes sort of natural to me, then.
It just made us wish even more that the Australia tourism ad starring Danny McBride and Chris Hemsworth was a real movie.
Wait, hold up. This isn't a movie.
No.
It's a tourism ad for Australia.
Yes.
Number 15, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2.
Why convince them to just get it done?
When asked about a sequel to her magnum opus in 2009, Nia Vardalos commented that she was considering taking the characters to their Greek homeland. We don't know if that would have made it worthwhile, but it certainly would have been better than what we got.
That never works. That never works.
That never works.
For what it's worth, 2002's My Big Fat Greek Wedding remains a seminal romantic comedy of the 21st century, but the sequel leaves a lot to be desired. That is, of course, if what you desire is fresh and original comedy, which it severely lacks. Despite the gap in time allowing Tula and Ian to have a daughter of their own, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2 does little to find any themes not already explored.
Do something! I'm trying to not fix everything. That's not working.
That's not working.
That's not working.
Number 14, Escape from LA.
I told you to stay down. Now look what you've done. I can't believe this.
If there's anything Kurt Russell proved with Escape from New York, it's that Snake Plissken is an action hero worthy of his own franchise. That said, the film wasn't the kind of smash hit that would necessitate bigger and better sequels. So the next collaboration we got from Russell and director John Carpenter were more grounded features like The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China. Be it advancements in special effects or scheduling, the stars finally aligned for them to do Escape from LA in 1996 with a reported budget of $50 million. The gambit did not pay off, the film earning half of that and suffering negative comparisons to the first, effectively killing the prospect of a third film altogether.
You gotta be kidding me.
Number 13, Blues Brothers 2000. While critical reviews were mixed on this one, fans of the original film largely view it as straight sacrilege.
Get the hell out of my office right now!
I think you need a hug.
And don't ever come back here again!
Sure, the first was deserving of a sequel, but the tragic death of John Belushi probably should have put the kibosh on that. It would seem, however, that the urge to start up the Bluesmobile again became too strong before long, as Blues Brothers 2000 came out in 1998, ironically enough. No offense whatsoever to John Goodman, but getting anyone else but Belushi to boogie alongside Dan Aykroyd was a fool's errand. It turns out that many people felt the same, as the movie only grossed roughly $14 million when all was said and done. Number 12, Easy Rider, The Ride Back.
We're gonna do this.
Yeah, you just go ahead. I'll be along.
We're willing to bet very few of you even knew this existed. Indeed, with an extremely limited release that peaked with Bike Fest Tampa, no offense to that event, Easy Rider The Ride Back hardly made a dent in the legacy of the 1969 film. Though legal rights were obtained to use the title and archival footage, it comes across more as fan fiction than anything else, especially considering 0 members of the original production returned, even if they did find a Peter Fonda lookalike to play his character's brother.
Thank God Daddy doesn't know any of this, because I don't think he could bear to have...
What, 2 sons like me? Is that what you're gonna say? That's what you're gonna say, wasn't it?
That's not what I meant.
Still, the biggest strike against this movie has to be it learning the wrong lessons from the first, completely ditching the countercultural themes in favor of its extreme motorcycle love. Number 11, Dirty Dancing, Havana Nights. Dirty Dancing, Havana Nights is a prime example of a potentially interesting film broken down to make a quick buck, except it didn't even do that.
I'm sorry.
I gotta go.
Originally conceived to integrate the Cuban Revolution into its star-crossed love story, the political backdrop was largely pushed aside to accommodate the dancing angle and draw associations to a far superior film. Barely even managing to recoup its production budget, Havana Nights fortunately proved even the most gullible of audiences wouldn't fall for a bait-and-switch of this magnitude. Look, we loved Patrick Swayze cameos wherever we could get them, but even his presence couldn't justify a cynical marketing ploy.
Now forget everything I just said and dance.
Number 10, Super Troopers 2.
Sorry I'm late. Hit a moose doing 90. Vaporize the biatch.
The first Super Troopers turned out to be a downright cult classic, delivering some truly memorable shenanigans, even if its larger story wasn't up to snuff. There's a danger, however, with developing a comedy sequel over the span of several years, as senses of humor and the genre as a whole are always changing. That was the impediment the Broken Lizard Troupe encountered in making Super Troopers 2, as they weren't able to secure financing until launching an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign in 2015. The film was finally released in 2018, and though it was made strictly for the fans, the antics of the Vermont Highway Patrol simply aren't as endearing meow-a-days.
See you later, sunshine.
Cuban American!
Cheerio! Okay, this job is as fun as I thought it was.
Number 9. The Two Jakes. No, this isn't a sequel to a movie called The One Jake. As a matter of fact, it's actually the sequel to the seminal neo-noir film Chinatown. Jack Nicholson's Jake Gittes character is definitely worthy of solving multiple big-screen mysteries, but the unending series of production troubles this movie had are likely an indication that it never should have been made. Of course, there's the obvious hindrance in disgraced Chinatown director Roman Polanski having to flee the United States to avoid criminal charges. But the real kicker came in 1985, when original filming was suspended due to production disputes.
I know what your time's worth, John, and I'll take care of you.
Eventually, Jack Nicholson stepped in to direct himself 4 years later, but by that point, no one cared, the film earning only 2/5 of the budget.
I didn't want you to be involved.
I am involved.
Number 8. Psycho 2.
Gonna get you for this, Norman!
The first Psycho was a massive success when it debuted in 1960, so much so that it's credited as being a watershed moment for the horror genre. However, it wasn't the last, as John Carpenter's Halloween popularized the slasher craze in 1978. Of course, it would have ripple effects, which included Universal bringing back Norman Bates to his eponymous motel. A counter to original novelist Robert Bloch's highly satirical Psycho 2, the unrelated film of the same name couldn't quite adapt Bates into a 1980s aesthetic. Though by no means a failure, the fact that it barely outgrossed the original despite 20+ years of inflation speaks volumes on the prospect of a fruitful franchise.
What are you doing, Norman?
The ending to Psycho was already perfect. Why add on?
Only your mother truly loves you.
Number 7. The Rage Carrie 2.
Excuse me, that's none of your business. Look, I know everything there is to know about Carrie White.
Kinda hard to make a sequel to a movie called Carrie when your title character is 6 feet under by the end of it. Allegedly, anyway. Still, that didn't stop someone from randomly digging deep into the Stephen King well to make a quick buck. Except they didn't, as The Rage Carrie 2 only made $17.8 million against a $21 million budget.
Mark, what's going on?
I have no idea.
We mean, with a title like that, how can you blame audiences for staying away? As bad as it was, it somehow managed to get Amy Irving to reprise her role as Sue Snell, making it an official sequel.
With all respect, lady, you are seriously batshit.
Still, we can't help but feel it lies in the remake camp, as it replicates plot threads to banal effect. Number 6. Wall Street. Money Never Sleeps. On the surface, we can see what they were going for here. It just didn't work.
That's not noise. Are we going under?
Wall Street was a pretty solid movie that featured an Academy Award-winning performance from Michael Douglas. So checking in on his corporate raider character Gordon Gekko around the turn of the 2008 economic crisis actually made sense story-wise. Considering the gap in time, it did about as well as it could have. But then there's that $70 million price tag to consider.
Money's a bitch that never sleeps.
We understand that adding Shia LaBeouf was intended to draw in the younger crowd, but come on, it's a Wall Street movie. It wasn't even either good or bad enough to spark discussion, just doomed to be forgotten by its own mediocrity.
That's great, Val. That's really great. So what's up next?
Number 5. Dumb and Dumber 2.
It hurts, Floyd. It hurts so bad.
Before you mention it, we know there was a prequel that came out in 2003. But seeing as it was made without the lead actors, we like to pretend it doesn't exist like the rest of the world. Speaking of movies we like to pretend don't exist, the direct sequel to 1994's Dumb and Dumber is, well, dumb. Like, in a bad way. We understand the prospect of reuniting Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels in their iconic roles was a juicy one, but couldn't that just have been done, like, in the 90s? Seeing the characters aged up so drastically makes for a rather jarring experience, and the throwaway joke they used to justify it doesn't really work.
So you mean that you just wasted the best years of your life? Out the window.
Number 4, Zoolander 2. Okay, last late comedy sequel, we swear. As opposed to the others, this one might have actually worked, what with Ben Stiller's directing track record staying solid in the intervening years with 2008's Tropic Thunder and his continued rapport with co-star Owen Wilson. With the actors aging rather well, it could have recaptured the same spirit rather easily and given us the follow-up we so craved. What we got, however, is a painfully unfunny slapdash of ideas and a general stench of desperation.
Oh, snap!
While the cult audience for the first film remains strong to this day, the jury came back quickly on this one, as audiences smelled a stinker a mile away. Simply put, Zoolander 2 is plain out of fashion.
Hansel, let us in. We want to apologize.
Number 3, Tron Legacy. Tron is one of those concepts that ought to evolve with the advancements in special effects technology, but when you let nearly 3 decades go by, you probably won't have the audience you need to support such a shift. While Tron Legacy made a respectable $410 million worldwide, it didn't get the numbers Disney needed to commit to the franchise long term, especially since reactions were rather mixed. Sure, the effects were drastically improved over the original, but the catch came in the form of Jeff Bridges' second character, Clue 2.0, who had to be de-aged to look like he did in the 80s.
You look the same. Oh, lots happened, Sam. More than you can imagine.
2020 saw Lion director Garth Davis hired for a third film, but that might be another sequel made too late. Number 2, Independence Day Resurgence.
Don't worry, we're in control dive. Falling, it's called falling. No, control dive.
When the star of your film turns down the sequel to make Suicide Squad, usually that's a good indication to pull the plug.
Y'all jokers must be crazy.
Not so according to Roland Emmerich and 20th Century Fox, who were determined to hit the 20-year anniversary of Independence Day with Resurgence. Whereas the first film was fun popcorn entertainment, the second was a forced, lifeless slog that failed to make even half the money the first did, with about twice the budget.
I knew they would come to exterminate you. I came to evacuate as many of you as possible.
And it was originally envisioned as the first of a two-parter to be filmed back-to-back. When it actually turned out, people didn't even really want to see one. Should new overlords Disney ever pursue a third film, it might actually be too soon.
Want more Mojo? Ms. Mojo produces original, high-quality pop culture-related videos on all your favorite movies and shows. Plus, celebrity news, fashion, lifestyle, and more.
Hey guys, it's Phoebe with Ms. Mojo.
My name is Sam.
My name is Eliza. And I'm Emily.
I'm Rebecca, and welcome to Ms. Mojo.
If you want videos on all the best reality shows, teen dramas, Disney movies, and sitcoms, be sure to check out Ms. Mojo for new videos every day.
Number 1. Avatar 2. It's the sequel that keeps on not giving. After years of delays, it's now scheduled to be released in December of 2022, now that filming is complete. But now we're not even sure there'll be theaters to play it by then.
It's all over.
Nothing's over while I'm breathing.
Okay, we'll let it have its day in court. But if it's anything less than the greatest movie of all time, we'll be seeing it on the top 30 of this list one day. Number 1. Basic Instinct 2. Let's just start by listing all the Razzie Awards this movie won and get them out of the way. Worst Screenplay, Worst Prequel or Sequel, Worst Actress for Sharon Stone, and Worst Picture.
You don't seem too upset by what's happened.
Of course I am. I'm traumatized.
That paint a pretty good picture for you? Look, we'll grant you that the first Basic Instinct is quite enjoyable in a pulpy sort of way, but it's straddling the line with being pure schlock. Basic Instinct 2 basically just took that fateful step over the line. Somehow managing to muster up a $70 million production budget, the film, if you can call it that, didn't even make half of its money back.
This time you knew right from the start what I was. And you let it happen again, didn't you?
In all honesty, after 2004's Catwoman, we didn't think Sharon Stone could sink any lower.
Now why would you believe it was me?
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.